Good evening, Internet. You are watching the Non-Pro TV Party, an obsessive Internet love letter to the genre television that has made being a geek totally chic. I'm your host, Frank, joined not at all in studio by James. Say hi, James.
Hi, James.
I hate that joke. On Non-Pro's TV Party, we do a live and poorly produced YouTube series where we geek out about our favorite television shows and invite you all to join along. We're not just recapping TV, we are spending way too much time watching it.
Oh, this is so much time, Frank.
So much. So a while back, James, you introduced me to at least the concept of TV tracking, I guess is a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
So I, like you, have an app that records all my favorite shows, and when I miss an episode and what have you, it has gotten disgusting. Yeah. All right. What's yours on? You're on Apple. So what do you have?
Yeah, so I'm on iOS, so I have a thing called iTV shows.
Okay.
And you can do like 10 shows or something for free. I watch more than 10 shows, so I actually paid money to have this app to track my stuff. I'm sure I could have found a free one, but I really liked the interface.
Yeah.
So
I'm on Android.
It's crazy.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Keep
I
plugging.
was gonna say, it's crazy because there are like shows on here that like I watched one episode of and like I mean to go back and like watch the whole thing. So it's like Orphan Black is like 39 episodes on it.
I have to add Orphan Black to my list. Oh crap! All right. So I'm on Android and pay attention to the highly explosive Samsung Note 7. This might be last known photo of me. I have TV series as the app I use. It lets you log all these series. It links up to, what is that site? Hold on. I think it might be
IMDb.
Tracked TV.
Track TV.
So even when I watch things on Kodi or Xbox Media Player, it'll automatically sync what I've seen on that. All legal.
Really? That's cool. Mine doesn't automatically sync. I have to go in and check it off.
I think it does, unless I'm in some sort of like fever dream checking things off, which is possible. I don't know. I'm not well. So anyways, there is so much television that we are effectively employed to watch.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like first world problems, and it totally is, but like we can't not watch a lot of this. We have to still write some sort of reviews, and what's more complicated, really, we try our best not to just do recaps. Nobody wants to read a recap. Even the people who are writing recaps and getting paid to write those recaps for like TV Guide or whatever, or DirecTV's info box, nobody cares about this. Nobody wants to do this. But we actually, like, if it's TV that's worth watching, it's worth actually talking about, in the same way that you would in a film course, but worse and with webcams on YouTube.
I had that conversation with somebody today. They were like, oh, yeah, I really want to learn something. And I was like, well, don't discount that you can learn something from fiction. Good fiction, tells you something about yourself and about the world you live in. His, like, mind was blown. Like, he was like, what?
I also like that in that scenario, that person, there was no follow-ups. There's no examples given. Just the concept.
I used 1984 and Animal Farm as examples of fiction, but then I did eventually go into Battlestar Galactica and talk about our podcast that we did a while back related to the party, about how it's really, a deconstruction of, post 9/11 and, Afghanistan and the whole 9 yards.
Right. And you could find those podcasts by going on Non-Productive.com, searching for Battlestar Galactica. And coming soon, while we're doing plugs at the top of the hour, we have got the Samurai Jack rewatch coming soon in the next few days, actually, depending on when you're seeing this video. The first episode will drop. And we're looking for guests who will like to appear either on this show or on that one. All right, so let us take this moment, in case people ask, because they always do. Yes, that is a fishbowl full of poker chips. Let's take this moment to actually discuss some of our favorite geek TV. One show that we really love, and we're going to actually discuss, let's talk about what we're going to talk about first, like an old school, high school essay. We've got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Flash, Arrow, maybe Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and maybe even Gotham. I don't know. There may be more if we come up with. We will announce if we're going to go into spoiler territory, we'll give you plenty of time and maybe even put some annotations down here to tell you when you could skip ahead if you'd like. But let's start with the show that we started off doing, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
So, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this week's episode. Like I almost want to say like it was kind of like by the numbers as far as a S.H.I.E.L.D. episode goes, but it was still really enjoyable. They did a lot of things that I felt were good and enjoyable for the show, even though I felt it was maybe a little predictable.
Yeah, the last 2 episodes we had were pretty stellar from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's when we got to introduce to Ghost Rider, and then the next episode we got to introduce to the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. There was a lot of by the numbers things that happened in this particular episode, which is a little disappointing because we had a jump week because I think the presidential debate was a vice presidential debate. Can't remember what it was 2 weeks ago that we was preempted for, but there are still some solid things that are good about the show. One, just from a production standpoint, is, and you could see this reflected in some of the other superhero TV shows that are out, especially those that are on the CW, is this is exactly how you do ensemble cast well. It doesn't, like, not every character needs to get camera time for their story arc to still feel relevant and pushed forward. You know what I'm saying? Like Fitz and Simmons, for example, do not have a lot of, I don't think they have any scenes together in this episode, yet the tension between what's going on with their professional relationship and the new director, it's, even if it doesn't get developed too much in the series, I don't feel like it's a dropped relationship or a dropped thread. Whereas other shows, which is maybe unfair to compare the two, don't really keep that balance going, where you definitively feel like what's going on with the characters that aren't on camera anymore. Why aren't we hearing anything about this family or that relationship? S.H.I.E.L.D. does a good job of, even when you're not playing in the sandbox of these characters, you don't feel less invested in their story.
They also do a good job at switching kind of who's in the A plot and who's in the B plot. So, I didn't mind Robbie and Daisy getting pushed to, in a sense, what was this episode's B plot, right? We got a little bit of time of them bonding. We get to learn about Robbie's brother and their relationship. But, other than a couple of heartfelt moments, they didn't have a lot of stuff to do this episode. But I honestly think I learned more about that Robbie in this episode maybe than I did in the past 2. Mostly because, I'm a comic guy. I know Ghost Rider. I kind of know the basics. This actually gets me interested in his character, a character that I'm not particularly familiar with the comics because it's a newer iteration. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I really like the A-plot. I think I expected there to be some sort of twist with the Inhuman Uprising. I don't know if I expected it to go exactly like that, and that was excellent.
Yeah, it's hard. We talked about this in previous episodes, on our YouTube channel, about how the ghosts are very much Doctor Who ghosts. They're almost like non-enemy enemies. I feel like, or at least they're not compelling villains. They're just sort of set dressing. We talked about it at length in the other episode. I do feel like these what are they? What's the Inhuman activists? The Watchdogs. I guess they're effectively still the Watchdogs. They seem a little bit more genuine as a threat. It's possibly because of what we're going through. We're in an election cycle. There's a lot of talk about just people who feel like their voices aren't heard and then go to the next step of stupidity and irrationality and violence. So it feels more genuine.
I think it's really interesting how much I liked this episode and the Watchdogs as compared to, say, the episode in which the Watchdogs were introduced last season, which I didn't like at all, right? Not maybe particularly for the Watchdogs, but because that episode, to kind of put the Watchdogs in, had a lot of our characters acting very out of character. And this episode, it almost felt like our characters were acting a little bit more in character. You know what I mean? Even like the director. So like we had, stuff where he was like, no, Coulson, you're not going with May, you're going here because this is exactly how you would have handled this.
Mhm.
This is the way this needs to happen, or how the director giving Simmons giving Simmons full authority to do whatever she needs to do to fix May. It's just, I think like you mentioned last week, I really don't want them harping on the like new director splitting the team apart sort of thing, like Shield against Shield. Like we had that, right?
Right.
So good to see that this guy knows when to show them and knows when to fold them, sort of deal.
Yeah,
And that
I
summed
like
up
that.
really great at the end of the episode.
I do feel like this is a legitimate spy organization. It feels a little bit more interesting, and that also is having story effects where like it's not just I don't want to buy the realism of this world where superheroes are bouncing around. It's again you get sick of certain story tropes, and the team versus the team not as enjoyable as this is PR is important. We need to work on PR before we do this thing. Other great like rapid fire cool things about the episode. I do like how Slovakia Accords are probably more important to Shield than to anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
They're more important. I really think they've done it more interestingly here in the show than they kind of did it in the movie, right? Like this is kind of the thing I wanted to see from it. Not that I didn't enjoy big superhero fight in Civil War, but like this to me is the real like meat and potatoes of the Registration Act,
And I think with long form storytelling on TV shows, you can build up that thing. If you look back to the Civil War review podcast we did, one of the things that I just couldn't buy was that, like, why is Tony Stark the bad guy? I mean, he's effectively right. You're working with a political organization that was elected into power, more or less. Like
just because he's an asshole doesn't make him wrong.
There's a lot of shorthand. There's a lot of lazy shorthand that I think somebody who's constrained, that's not even lazy. When you're constrained to 2 hours, you rely on the users, on the audience's shorthand to be like, all right, the good guys and government's bad, and the good guys say the government's bad, so we believe that. But it's show don't tell. Don't just tell me we can't trust the government with this kind of power. I'm not going to just believe you because of all the 90s and 80s era comic books I read. Show me that there was something why I should, with what we said in the podcast, is make General Ross an enemy where he has power and we're worried about him having the power. This is a case. Somebody leaked that information of where Inhumans being relocated are to the watchdogs. That's a case of the Slovakia Accords, of government interference being a bad thing directly. You could do that in an weekly, you know what I mean, a TV show, but it'd be hard to do in a 2-hour movie. I think it was a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, Yo-Yo Rodriguez is great. I do like her a lot. Amazing. And I thought her power was kind of cool and she was interesting beforehand. This is the first time we've got an episode of her actually.
Well, it's cool because we've seen her a lot. I don't want to say she's a series regular, but they're using her a lot. And I hope that actually, she might be a series regular. She's been, I think, in every episode.
Yeah, this season. I mean, there's been 3, but yeah, and I like that.
I hope she's a series regular. I like her.
Yeah, and I like the idea that, well, I don't even need her to be in every episode necessarily, but, Deathstroke showing up again would be kind of fun. Having reoccurring stuff is one of the complaints people who complain about. So I will. The ending, just maybe to wrap it up, the ending was pretty powerful, right? So we've got the senator who's obviously got a chip on her shoulder. She's working with a terrorist group, false flag operations to frame the Inhumans. Pretty trite, but why? But fine, it's good. But that last scene with her talking to her brother and opening up his mail and then leaving, and you just see that statue that kind of, without message hammering it, without having a character exposition it, explains to you everything you need to know about what that senator's motivation was to hate Inhumans so much. Pretty powerful.
Yeah. So just so I'm not missing it, because you're saying it's really powerful, and I was a little concerned, but now I think I'm getting it now that you're saying it. Does that mean like he was affected by the fish oil, but it didn't work, so he got turned into stone?
All right, so now this is where a writer who's listening.
I just thought you might have Medusa powers.
Oh God! All right, so this is where like a writer who would be like just looking at me like, see, told you we need to have Basil exposition show up and explain it. Yeah, that's what's happening is I can't believe Medusa powers is the most ridiculous explanation for this. Somehow he was exposed to the Terrigen mist in some way, which I don't quite as I recall, the fish oil pills never killed anyone if you either turned inhuman or didn't. But I guess there's a mystery there to solve. Somehow he got exposed to Terrigen mist, and he was not destined to be inhuman, so he became a statue. In other words, this thing that the humans use to recruit themselves or convert themselves killed her brother. And to me, to my imagination, that filled in the blanks and said, yeah, that would be a good motivation to seek mindless revenge. Or
that makes sense.
Revenge.
My question
that being said, there's a lot of
wasn't opening.
What was that?
There was a stack of letters she was opening because she was tossing them, and there was a stack of letters she wasn't opening that she just kept putting in a pile. Curious
maybe
about
just
that.
Like circulars and stuff.
So I have two favorite things from this episode that I got to mention real fast. Or not like two favorite things, but two things like of note that I enjoyed. First was I liked when what's his name who made the like real life body decoy guy whose name I forget.
Scottish scientist
guy, yeah. I liked when he did the whole like he said it's a myth that we use X part of our brains or whatever, right?
Yeah, that was good. Brad line was good.
Yeah, I don't think if S.H.I.E.L.D. is like super real sciencey show, but it was just nice
to be aware to avoid those tropes, even if it's like we're in the world of science fiction,
exactly
lazy science fiction, and just
exactly
right.
And then I was incredibly excited the minute Fitz started pulling out the corks because I set it right here to my computer. I'm like, making a compass, making compasses. It's an EMP. It's going to go off. It's going to be electromagnetic pulse, which will pull all the compasses towards it.
All right.
And this is Boy Scouts, a needle through a cork in a bowl of water. Wow. I was so excited.
Okay. Yeah, you in fact were. All right. So we're running short on time. So we're and because we're not exactly sure who's watched what, it's hard doing this as one episode at a time. It makes it easier to tell people, hey, if you haven't watched it, don't watch this yet. But if we're doing a bunch of TV, we're gonna just have to rely on your intelligence. But we will, like I said, give you heads up. So let's go through some other stuff. James, let's concentrate on keeping it down to a formal. I'm getting my clock up. 2 minutes per thing we're going to talk about. All right.
Oh boy!
So you at home, you can rely on your YouTube counter. We will not overspeak. So let's talk. That was loud. Let's talk about brand new to the CW, Supergirl.
So I've only seen the first episode of Supergirl, but first episode of the second season of Supergirl, but I loved it. And maybe that's just because I'm lacking like really great Superman and happiness in my DC.
Yeah.
But it's got it to see Taylor, who's the actor who plays Superman, and Supergirl. And
yeah. So
John
it's extremely happy. It's
everybody interacting.
It's bright, and that's really good. It's something that's been missing in like the DC cinematic universe. Here's my issue with this is I did not want this to become Superman. It's Supergirl. So I was worried about Superman joining the cast. I think they did an excellent job in that first episode of balancing those characters. They didn't like neuter Superman in that he was just sort of there in the background, but like it was definitely Supergirl's show. So quick example would be where they're holding up the building, right? So he's really strong and powerful. He's holding up the building, preventing the Lex Tower or whatever it was, Luthor building from collapsing. Supergirl is the one who gets the beam to fix the foundation. She's the one who fights the big bad in that episode while he goes like helping the citizens. Like they complement each other, and that's really important. So I think great show. For me, I enjoyed it even though I fell off of watching it on CBS because of time. So I think you could probably just watch it season 2. Just go right ahead. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, well, and I think you can jump into it season 2, and they don't like do any needless stuff with the whole Superman thing. One
exception would be James Olsen. A lot of people who were fans throughout CBS did say that they were upset that they just dropped that character relationship.
Nope, super excited about that.
We are done.
Exact opposite feeling.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Exact opposite feeling.
All right. Do we want to give another minute to that? We'll go back to it afterwards. We'll tell people that we're going back to it.
Okay.
So next one should be, let's talk about Flash, shall we? Minutes from now.
So
yeah.
You go first.
Flash, I disliked the way they got out of Flashpoint. I mean, it was really quick. Everyone I know seems to have enjoyed it because they didn't want to be in a bizarre universe, which I think is a good idea because one of the fun things about CW is how the shows interact with one another. And if they were in a completely bonkers CW verse, it would be tedious. But I did not buy the motivation at all for Barry to say, yes, Reverse Flash, kill my mother. I've faced a mild inconvenience in that one of my friends is dying. Like I did not buy it. I'm not saying that it wasn't something that could have happened eventually. I just did not feel like Barry's wonderful world was worth getting rid of that just because he was losing his power. He may have his adopted father was getting to be a drunk, and that Wally kind of kept putting himself in danger.
Also, I'm incredibly tired of the CW Flash basically using time travel as their big thing, right? This is the big thing that's going to allow us to change up the show, and then literally pulling their punches. What, they come back in episode 2 and everybody's hunky-dory again after Barry calls family dinner, admits what he did? Like, my problem with their use of time travel is time travel has to have real, lasting effects. And let's be honest, the fact that Cisco's brother, look, I'm not going to say that they might not bring it up again, but like, it feels like they pulled those punches. And then I wanted those effects to have larger effects on the CW verse, but the only effect we know so far is in Arrow that Diggle has a son, probably because.
But that's actually
it only happened in Arrow.
Yeah, we don't know if it happened in Arrow.
Right, Diggle's off in wartime in Arrow.
Right.
We don't even know if that's going to actually.
All right, we're out of time. I will say this: I have more things to talk about the Flash as well, so we definitely should be making this 3 minutes each at least. We ramble too much, is what I'm saying. Let's move on directly to Arrow. We've got about 2 minutes. Ready? Okay.
Can I start?
Yeah.
So I totally didn't think I was going to like the new team aspect of Arrow, like doing a new team and whatever. And I'm not going to say like episode 1 sold me, but I think episode 2 did. I really like, I'm not quite sure about Robes Guy, but I like him. Something about him really drags me in.
Ragman. Actual DC superhero. I
like Ragman. I think there's something about that relationship that I like. I'm kind of interested in the Broadway Russian story. And I like that we're going to still be dealing with Quentin Lance, even though we don't have either of the Lance girls on the show anymore. And I think that's a cool story that I like to retread, even though kind of we did it already.
I am opposite to you. I love the first episode of Arrow. I did not like the first episode of Flash, like the first episode of Arrow. I enjoy how it kind of reset the clock normally. I feel like there are consequences to all the actions that happened in the last season of Arrow, as opposed to just a hand-wavium and starting over. I like the idea of him having to decide whether or not he wants a new team. The second episode, I was not too thrilled with. I did not like the training montage. Felicity constantly criticizing Arrow while he was trying.
That I didn't like.
It was ridiculous.
Also, because that exercise should have worked. Let's be honest here. That is like a television trope 101. No, like, you should just reveal your identity. That's how you get everyone to trust you, and that's how they figure out the exercise to work together. Like, come on. I am James Carolyn. I've seen enough television to know that I'm like, oh shit, we got to work together.
Yeah, I really did think. I mean, maybe they're just not television savvy. We don't really know. Not
a lot of time for TV when you're a vigilante.
I like that we're going to see Team Arrow probably eventually forced to work together again. And you know what? I like that Thea isn't in the wanting to have be part of the team anymore. And Diggle, I think everything so far, all the characters in Arrow, and I believe we're maybe just a little bit over, are behaving as if last season really happened, which is nice. Yeah. All right. And I guess that wraps up. Legends of Tomorrow is a show let's start talking about now, although it's not going to be spoilery because neither of us saw it.
Yeah, so I didn't even really watch the first season of Legends of Tomorrow, which is sad because I really like Arthur Darvill and a lot of the actors who are on it from the other CW shows. But I don't know. I guess I just wasn't, and you kind of shared this sentiment. I really wasn't into their interpretation of villain for the show.
Vandal Savage.
Yeah, I just wasn't into it from the Arrow two-parter, even though I liked that two-parter kind of working together thing as a whole. So I really wasn't into it, but as far as I know, Vandal Savage is maybe out this season. Like that was done. Yeah. Anyway, I saw a thing that described Legends of Tomorrow basically wanting to be Doctor Who with superheroes, and that I could get behind.
Sure. I agree. So last season I got maybe halfway through, and then for me it was a time issue mostly. I did not like the way they did Vandal Savage and the Hawk. I really don't like prophecy stories. I don't like the Hawk. The Thanagarians being mystical, and Destiny was really kind of weird. It dealt with time travel in a very wonky way as well. There's a lot of things that I just felt wasn't for me, and I just sort of fell off. This season, I don't know if they're really, it seems like they're aiming for more fun, and that's the lesson CW should be learning. What they do very well is fun. What they don't do that well is consequence, and I know what I said about Arrow, but like they don't do very well with like these cyclical story arcs that are like soap operas. That stuff just annoys people. It's the reason why people like season 1 of Flash better than season 2, or season 1 of Arrow better than any other season. Like you got to know what kind of show you're making. And I know a lot of people have issues with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and love the CW shows, and then vice versa, but each one of those shows does their thing well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really does get like consistently an arc down packed. You could feel characters evolving. With CW, you almost don't want to see the evolution. You don't want to keep resetting it to 0. We're like, oh no, Iris and Barry, will they or won't they? But at the same time, you want to have just the fun of one central story arc going through the season, and then, like a crazy thing of the week that happens. I think that's probably where their strength is. And hopefully that's what Legend of Tomorrow is going to do. One crazy time travel adventure a week.
Yeah. I don't want them to drop like the inter-character drama completely. I think that's actually really important for a show. But I think the CW has a tinge for the melodrama. It bounces from that like reasonableness to this is like, let's just do a soap opera,
Right.
That's kind of its big jumping off point. I think many of the characters have much reasonable drama, and then the characters have like non-reasonable drama. Like I didn't have a problem with Caitlin having an issue with Robbie being dead and that sort of drama thing. That was normal and it worked well, but then there's like Arrow's mother running for mayor, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and then there's a tragedy. One parent dying, then the next parent dying, then the other sibling, and then the other sibling, and then one sibling comes back. And
then forget even that whole mayor thing happened, because no way Oliver Queen would be able to run for mayor after that fiasco. So
exactly.
They have to forget its own canon just to make it kind of make sense sometimes.
Right. I agree. So again, further non-spoilery stuff is going to be, I'm going to talk a little bit about Gotham, not spoilers, because I know that, James, you haven't seen it. You fell off of Gotham, right?
It wasn't because like I disliked Gotham. I thought it was fun, but I'm just invested in a lot, and there are these 5 like connected DC shows, and I made my choice.
Right. So I'll be honest, and I've had that same decision, and I probably will again. It's hard to watch all this television, and you should be doing something you don't want to do. So don't be like us. We're doing this because it's our jobs. You could just watch what you want to watch. But for me, the interconnectivity of the CW shows wasn't enough to trump the fun of some of these other shows. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. frankly for the quality of the storytelling. Not necessarily even for the interconnectivity with the movies, and Gotham for the complete off-the-wall bonkerness of the entire show. So if you do find yourself limited, don't just pick one because of interconnectivity, although that might work for you, so do it if you want to. But Gotham has been mad. Every season has been slightly different with their theme. First season was very much gangsters, and I liked it. Second season was just off the wall crazy. Everybody was hamming it up. This third season, I think some of the best, like they've gotten the hamminess down to like it's crazy, but like realistic crazy, which the second season didn't quite have it. So we've got, if you've seen any of the trailers, you know some of the characters that have showed up in the second season. Most notably, I would say the Mad Hatter, Penguin running for mayor, those story arcs, really quality.
What's with these people are running for mayor, huh?
Yeah, it's almost as if we're in election season, and all these stories want to tell things about election. By the way, the least bonkers thing about Gotham is the fact that the Penguin is running for mayor on a campaign of insults and make Gotham safe again.
God.
It's not ham-fisted at all. It's like subtle in the background on the radio when somebody says it, and I'm like, that is the least crazy thing that this show has done. But it's really fun, including the actor who plays the Mad Hatter, who was the Chief Wolf on Walking Dead last season. He does a really good job of making you feel a little disturbed about what he is saying and doing, and it's kudos to the actor whose name I did not look up before doing this. But you can do it yourself. Mad Hatter on Gotham. So, on that awkward note, we did say we wanted to talk again. We realize now probably 5 minutes would be best for each of the shows. It's going to be awkward playing with this format. We usually do one episode reviewed at a time, so you could clearly know when it's being spoiled. But hopefully people don't find this too tedious. With Flash, I want to say that the second season, the third season, second episode of Flash. I did not like the Flashpoint, how he exited from Flashpoint. But if you would allow me to talk a little bit about that second episode.
Sure, yeah, I'd talk about it too, so you go first.
I feel like, God, how do I put this? Everything I've wanted from a time travel story was expressed by the two Flashes in the bar. Between John Wesley Snip and Gary in that coffee shop scene, the paradox, the you can't use time travel as a solution for everything. You definitely, and even the way they tied it in, not just to say, hey, it makes for bad writing, don't do that, but or like this is our MacGuffin for why we don't want them to have the bad writing and the lack of tension and stakes that come from having infinite time travel fixes. But more importantly, they tied it back into the Flash story arc. So I think Flash tells Flash that if you're about moving forward, you have to face your life and move forward. You can't keep running away. And that's like core to the character. So it's both saying we can't keep doing time travel stories, and this is the in-character reason why you can't keep doing time travel stories. I thought it was brilliant. The best.
I 100% agree. That scene made me so happy, right? It's not only is it a plausible in-universe explanation for the writers aren't going to keep doing this, it also makes me happy because one thing I think The Flash does really well that no other show really, I don't want to say no other show, but The Flash is really good at kind of making promises and then delivering on them, right? So we knew Flashpoint was going to happen. We knew Flashpoint was going to happen from like early season 1, and they did it. You know, maybe it wasn't done the best way we wanted it to, but they did it. We've specifically gotten hints to things, and we've gotten them delivered. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to go into, you know, so even some of my favorite shows spend a lot of time on plot lines that get dropped. Fringe is,
let's just throw out things that nobody will defend.
Lost, right? Fringe is an amazing show, you know,
really
particularly in its third season. But season 1 is all about working out which plot lines they want to follow. You know, The Flash, for whatever reason, didn't have that problem. And it managed to do all the things it set out to do. Whether it did them as good or as bad as we would have liked, that might be different. But I think time travel is very difficult to do in television or in any medium at all. You know, and there are a lot of ways to go about it. There's time travel has very specific rules and you can't break them, which is kind of what The Flash is doing here. It's like, look, time travel is big business, or you do like a Doctor Who and the rules really don't matter depending on which day it is.
Right.
So I like this better than maybe, you know, other things.
Yeah, I would go as far as to say that one of the reasons The Flash does it well, particularly the first season, is because it had the arc of, we have one major storyline, season 1, right? And then a bunch of stories of the week that tie into that major storyline. So it never became too convoluted. What happens is when those little story arcs way down the major story arc of the season, which happened a lot in Arrow in later seasons, where everybody's own little arc. You know, I'm recovering from the fact that the Lazarus pit made me into a homicidal monster. Well, I am trying to come to terms with the fact that I'm now a superhero, but I'm also a lawyer. I'm a superhero lawyer. Well, I'm doing, like, there's just so many different heavy-handed season-long arcs that you end up getting really weird situations like, hey, don't shoot me about this, guys, but why was Felicity and Ollie a thing? Like, because fan fervor? I don't know. It just seemed weird. But yeah, I hope that these shows find their footing, and I think that they will for the most part. But yeah, so I guess my quick review of everything was, TV's great. Isn't it, though?
We watched a lot of it.
Maybe too much? Think maybe too much?
Possibly. I think I have a problem. But I mean, I guess I could have a problem with crack cocaine.
Yeah, and this is cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Cheaper than crack cocaine. That's going to be our...
Probably healthier, too.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you really enjoy this, like and share it and tell your geeky friends. If you didn't like it, then
don't tell anyone.
Don't just it's opposite day and leave a comment that's positive at the bottom, because our fragile egos cannot handle it. Thank you, and good night, everybody.